Our military analyst, Professor Michael Clarke, joins me in the studio. Hello there to you, Michael. It doesn't look like a good situation when you watch that report by John Sparks there. The Ukrainians struggling. Meanwhile, further financial support is getting tied up in arguments in legislatives around the world. What do they need to turn the tide in this war?
Yeah, Sam, in hardware terms, they need three types of things. As John Sparks' report there said, first of all, artillery. They've got to have more artillery. The Russians think that they'll get through 4 million shells this year. The Ukrainians need at least 2.5 million shells. They've got nothing like it. So at the moment, this is an artillery war. Won't always be, but that's the way it is at the moment. So that's the first thing they need, artillery. Second thing they need is more air defence, ground-based air defence. The best form of that is the Patriot missile system. They've got some batteries, but they haven't got enough missiles. I mean, the missiles are $1 million a go, and they need more in order to hold off Russian air attacks. And then the third thing they need is air power. Of course, they're getting F-16 aircraft. They're on their way, but will they get enough to make a difference? Will they make a difference? We don't know, because the aircraft is just the airframe. You need the whole system that goes with it. But what they really want is an aircraft or air power that will hold back Russian air power, because at the moment the Russians are having great success with glide bombs. So they're using their Su-34s, Su-35s, 25 or 30 miles behind the lines, throwing bombs which are able to glide, and they're very heavy bombs, onto their targets quite accurately. They're playing havoc along the front lines of the Ukrainian forces. So somehow the Ukrainians have got to get air power to push them back away from the front line to be able to get back on the front foot. But at the moment, they are losing simply because of lack of armament, not lack of ability or lack of willpower. It's simple lack of ammunition and armaments. OK, all right. Well, that's something that we need to keep an eye on. We've seen footage of Vladimir Putin, an ebullient-looking Vladimir Putin, showing off Russia's military might in these images here. I mean, there's a lot of theatrics with the man. Yeah. How optimistic can he be, really, about Russia's military might? And how have the victories, as he would describe them, in Ukraine been costly to his capabilities? Yeah. I mean, Sam, he's feeling very chipper at the moment. This is partly because he's on an election campaign. He wants to be seen more, and he's showing off the new the Tupolev 160M, the new very heavy bomber, biggest bomber in the world of its type, and it's coming into service soon. So he wants to show off Russia's new weapons. And what he is optimistic about is what's going on across the front line. I mean, since they took Avdiivka last weekend, then the Russians have pushed all the way along the front line, not with very much effect most of the time. So they've taken Avdiivka, which is quite important. There's a big attempt at an attack at Robotyne, and the 42nd Motorised Rifle Brigade got completely demolished by the 65th Brigade of the Ukrainians, because the Russians were advancing with T-55 tanks, old tanks. So they're pushing everything onto the front line. They're not doing very well there. They tried to take it back. But this is the point. Avdiivka is on the road to Kramatorsk. And if the Russians are able to move from Avdiivka, not immediately, but in due course, if they move north towards Kramatorsk, if they manage to take Kupiansk in the north, they've got about 40,000 troops massing at Kupiansk. If they can take Kupiansk and move south, then the possibility is that they might take, in due course, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, and they'll grab the other third of the Donbass that they don't now occupy. That must be in the minds of Russian thinkers at the moment, during the course of the next few months. If we can keep this going, we'll take Kramatorsk, we'll take Slavyansk, we've got the Donbass. The Ukrainians will be digging in fiercely to the west and the north of those points, but those are the next battles to come, I think, unless the Ukrainians get quite a lot more ammunition quite soon.
Well, let's talk as well about what's been happening further south, the port of Odessa. There was a drone attack. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and I mean, another attack on Odessa overnight. And again, the Russians keep on attacking the Black Sea ports, mainly because they've lost control of the Black Sea. That's the one area where the Ukrainians have had some real strategic success. So Odessa, Chornomorsk, the big port north of it, Yuha, just north of that. Those are the three big ports which keep Ukraine's commerce going backwards and forwards to the Danube Basin and through the Bosphorus to the Mediterranean. So the Russians are keeping up this pressure because they're attacking not just the front lines, but they're attacking civil society in Ukraine, the civil infrastructure, and the ports, the Black Sea ports, have always been a big target for them, and I think that'll continue to be the case throughout certainly the first half of this year.